Algebra 2, this is review 2A over lessons 2.1 through 2.4. It is my understanding that Mr. Fontenot reviewed some of this with you, so if I happen to go over the same problems he did, I will apologize in advance, and then we'll just keep on rolling. If you will look at number 1 on the first page, it has them labeled as domain in the first bubble and range in the second bubble, and the question or the instructions say to give the domain a range. Well, the domain in this case is 100, 200, 300 because it's the numbers in the first circle. The range is 50, 100, 150. Then the instructions ask you to determine whether it is a function. This one is a function. Some of you put just yes, which that is fine. It's a function because none of the x's repeat, or none of the girls have more than one boyfriend. And this one is actually both, because 1 to 1 means that there is exactly one y, one unique, meaning different y for each x, and every y has a counterpart in x, so that makes it both 1 to 1 and on 2. If you will look at number 8 at the bottom of the page, it has x equals -2. Y equals lines are horizontal, so x equals lines are vertical. And this one happens to go through -2. So the domain is -2, which is the only x value given. The range is all real numbers. This one is not a function because it fails the vertical line test. Or you can say that the x repeats with each point. This one is also continuous, which is something they did not ask us at the top of the page. And this one's continuous because it forms a solid line. It's not just a set number of points. On page 2, if you will look at number 11, it tells you to use g of x, which has 2 minus x squared, and it asks you to find g of 4. That means we're going to put 4 in for the x. There's the 4 for the x. So that means we have 2 minus, there's nothing to do with the 4 that's inside the parentheses, so you have 4 squared. Well, what is 4 times 4? Well, it's 16. So 2 minus 16 is a -14. If you will look at number 18, it asks you to determine if those equations are linear or not. This one is not linear because, and it tells you to explain why, because x has an exponent, or you can say power, greater than 1. The other rules are variables cannot be in the denominator. and variables cannot be under a radical. Which also gives you the answer to number 22, which has f of x equals square root of x plus 3. This one is also not linear because the variable is under the square root. On the third page, if you will look at number 26, (3x equals negative 2y minus 2). The instructions are to put these in standard form, showing your work, and then identify A, B, and C. If you remember, standard form has some number x, then some number y equals some number. Well, when you look at this equation, the y is on the wrong side. So then I need to add 2y to both sides. So following the pattern for the standard form, we would have 3x plus 2y equals negative 2. Then they ask you for the value of a. A is the coefficient in front of x, which is 3. B is the coefficient in front of y, which is 2. And C is the number that is alone, which is negative 2. If you look at number 29, it says to find the x and y intercept by showing your calculations, then graph using the intercepts. So we have y equals 3x minus 6. Remember, an x-intercept has a y equal to 0. So that means we have 0 equals 3x minus 6. Add 6 to both sides. So 6 equals 3x. Divide by 3. So x equals 2. But because it's an intercept, which is a point, we have to write it in the proper format, which would be x, which is 2, comma, y, which is 0. Then to find the y-intercept, we have to use x equals 0. So using the same equation, we have y equals 3 times 0 minus 6. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, minus 6 is a negative 6. So to write it as an ordered pair, the x comes first, which is 0, comma, negative 6. And the last part of the instructions is to graph those. So on your graph, 2, 0 means to go right 2 and up 0, and 0, negative 6, which means to go 0 right or left from the origin, but to go down 6. And it says to graph the line, so that means I connect those with a line. Okay, on the next page, it says find the rate of change or the slope. So if you'll look at number 35, we need to review slope formula because if you'll recall, I'm not going to give that to you on the test. So the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Those are subscripts, not exponents, in the formula. Okay, 35 has the points 1, 9, and 0, 6. I always try my best to get students to label these as x1, y1, x2, y2. The ones who will label very rarely miss a sign. The ones who don't label miss about half of them. So you can determine how many of them you want to label. So putting this in the formula, y2 is 6 minus, because it's in the formula, y1 is 9 over x2 is 0 minus, because it's in the formula, 1 is x1. 6 minus 9 is a negative 3. 0 minus 1 is a negative 1. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 is a positive 3. If you look at one like number 40, number 38. I looked at the wrong number. 38, it asks you to do the same thing with negative 2, and 10, negative 2. So the first thing we need to do is label our points, x1, y1, x2, y2. So to find the slope, we take y2, which is negative 2, minus y1, which is negative 2, over 10 for x2 minus a negative 2 for x1. Well, negative 2 minus a minus 2 is the same thing as negative 2 plus 2, which is going to give us a 0. 10 minus a minus 2 is the same thing as 10 plus 2, which is 12. If the 0 is on the top, then this is equal to 0. However, if you had, after doing the formula, if you ended up with this, where the 0 is in the denominator, then that makes the slope undefined. Okay, on the next page, it asks you to determine the rate of change of the graph. So if you'll look at one like number 41, and because of the way we're having to do this, I just have to draw it on here. I can't show you the actual paper, so you'll have to compare the drawing on the video to your paper. If you'll notice that this point here is exactly in the corner of the graph. So now we can figure the slope, which is the same thing as the rate of change, by doing the height, which is 2. Notice that that's equal to the change on the y-axis, and the width, which is 5 spaces. So then your slope is rise over run, which is 2 over 5. If you look at the next page, for number 51, it tells you that it is parallel to y equals negative 1/4 x minus 2 and has an x-intercept of